Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi everyone. We are from group 10 of KBA class who would like to present our research in the title Muslim Inventions that Lead to the World Modernization.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is AHMAD ZULKIFLI bin ZAHAROM. My metric number 1190421. Okay. So for the introduction, Islam gives the utmost emphasis and importance in pursuing knowledge as stated in the Quran. The story of the Muslim science take the form of captivation of knowledge from A, different civilization, B, accumulating their original and significant contribution, and C, increasing knowledge across centuries and regions through trade, cultural interaction and education. It was the Muslim who nurtured the knowledge of ancient times, expanded it, and finally passed it on to Europe. For instance, within a decade of Prophet Muhammad SAW death, the Muslim had conquered all the Arabian Peninsula. Then within a century, Islam had spread from Al-Hamra in Spain to the border of China. It was this that inspired the Muslims to great height in science, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, chemistry, philosophy, art, and architecture.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh everyone. My name is Muhammad ROSTAM with metric number 119049. Now, let's continue to the emergence of universities by Islamic scholars. Knowledge is the light of life. Without knowledge, human beings will not be able to control their life in the best possible way. In fact, it is certain that human civilization will continue to decline from time to time. The advent of Islam, which was conveyed by the Prophet Muhammad SAW, has brought the human civilization towards a more civilized civilization. Allah says in Surah Al-Mujadalah verse 11, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ, which means that Allah may raise the ranks of those who believe among you and these who have been given the knowledge of the religion from among you by some degree. This word of Allah proves that Allah will raise the rank of the group of people who will believe and have knowledge. Furthermore, Anas ibn Malik reported Prophet Muhammad said, "Talabul ilmi faridatun ala kulli Muslim." Seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. Muslims were also motivated to this search for knowledge since they are encouraged to seek knowledge, observe and reflect throughout the Quran. Advanced subjects were taught at mosques, schools, hospitals, observatories and scholars residents across the Muslim world. There is some mosques that converted to the university. Al-Azhar is one among them, and it still stands today. 130 years later, it received a large amount of students and boasted notable lecturers such as Ibn al-Haytham, who stayed in the area of a long time, and Ibn Khaldun, Egypt's prominent 14th century sociologist. A considerable number of foreigners as well as Egyptians attended Al-Azhar University in Cairo, several of whom came from outside Cairo. Next, in Fez, Morocco, another great complex was built. Fatima Al-Fihriya, a pious and religious young woman, established this university as Al-Qarawiyyin, a mosque in 8059 during the Idris rule. She pledged to build a mosque dedicated to providing education to her community in Fez. Al-Qarawiyyin, like some of the great mosques, quickly evolved into a center of religious education and discussion, eventually expanding to encompass the natural sciences, earning it to the title of the one history's earliest university. Al-Qarawiyyin has a lot of equipment including astronomical instruments, astrobolus, sand clubs and other tools. Scholars and students came from all around the country. The number of candidates was so large that the university had to implement a strict selection system just like universities do today. The requirement back then included knowing the entire Quran as well as having a true understanding of Arabic and general sciences. Next, Zaituna University. They will work on language, logic, documentation, cosmology, arithmetic, geometry, minerals, and vocational training in the Zaituna Mosque in Tunisia. An Arabic version of Said Jerome's History of Ancient Nations, written before 420, was found in the Tunisian Kairouan's Article Library. The education took place in a study group called a Halaqah til Ilm or Halaqah. This was a semicircle made by a seated student in front of the teacher. As a symbol of respect, visiting scholars were allowed to sit next to the lecturer. And in many Halaqah, a specific section was always prepared for guests. At one point, the Mosque of Amrani, Cairo, had more than 40 halaqas, while the Cairo Grand Mosque had 120 halaqas.
I am Muhammad Anwar Jundi bin ZULKIFLI. My matric number is 1190495. So today I'm going to talk about the story of paper, which is developed by Muslim scholars. Actually, at first, the paper is originated from China. The Chinese created paper in 2nd century. They created paper using their hand by blending raw plant fibers with water, writing the bulk on the screen, and then sizing it into a suitable writing surface. And after that, Muslims discovered to make paper when they resided Central Asia in 8th century. They started making paper using nylon scrap, which is we can get it easier in the Muslims country. Next, we're talking about Muslims automated the process. Although we know that the China is actually creating the paper first, but the Muslims community automated the process, meaning that they modernized the method. They use the method that's actually new. They develop and create this method so that they use less energy to make the paper. Instead of smashing using hands, they use water power mills to stamp the fiber, which is a very incredible and brilliant at that times, to think by using this rather than using a human energy. When Muslims created the automated process, this actually increased the paper production. Hence, across the Muslims world, paper will establish and become inexpensive and abundant and easy to get. Therefore, the paper is actually have a good influence and broad benefits, such as paper spread written information from the elites to everyone, from the public. And the second is increased literacy rate. And the third one is influence in establishing library and bookstores. And fourth is scientific knowledge spread to the Islamic inspired, so that we can see actually by developing and created paper, it's actually beneficial for the Muslims community. Other than use linen scrap that I have just explained before, Muslims also experimented using other material, such as producing paper using cotton. And in 10th century, first Quran used paper was reported, and the evidence was found in the 11th century in a Muslims manuscript that they stated that Muslims use cotton for the paper, this is the evidence that Muslims are actually developing and using their creativity, using their efforts to actually make it more better and modernize the idea. Expansion of paper in Islam Empire. In year 950, it continued west from Egypt into North Africa and Morocco. Around 950, it crossed the straits into Muslim Spain, where the Andalusians quickly adopted it, and the town of Jadiva near Valencia became popular for its production of thick, glossy paper known as shatibi. Paper was widely used throughout the Islamic world within 200 years of its invention in Baghdad. Paper in Europe. In 1293, the first paper mill in Christian Europe was founded in Bologna. In 1309, first usage of paper in England. According to the Danish historian, thanks to the Muslims that brought out the paper and produced it in the large scale. In 1550, Turkish famous marble paper was brought out in the Europe and became popular. It is actually marble paper is actually from Turkey that has been made by the Muslims. As a conclusion, Muslims succeeded in adapting paper's creation from China and making it better with their own innovation. They are the leading paper industry and managed to produce in a factory scale that help not only providing jobs and improve economy, but also in spreading the culture of knowledge. Therefore, it not only Muslims who gained the positive outcome from this innovation, but also the West country in Europe.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Riduan bin Nurdin. My metric number is 1190168. Okay, today I will be present about the rise of glass industry in golden age of Muslim civilization. Okay, first I will talk about the history of glass industry. Under Islam, the glass industry witnessed a revival. The old centers flourished and new ones were established. The remarkable sumptuous Islamic glass treasures, which are distributed among museums throughout the world, bear witness to the high artistic and technological level of Islamic glass. Damascus was a major glassmaking center in the 30th and 40th centuries. From the 80th centuries forward, it was produced in large quantities in Syria, Egypt, Iraq, and Andalusia. Muslims had inherited the well-known Roman glass industry, which was located in Syria and Egypt. Muslim glass blowing techniques included double stamping, mold blowing, engraving, and cutting. They also mastered glass decorating and added bottles, flasks, vases, and cups to their product line. A 700-year-old shrine enamel glass uncovered in Sweden and southern Russia. Glass was famous in the Iraqi city of Samarra and was sought after by buyers from all over the world. One of the most beautiful finds in Samarra was in 19th century, which is white glass sides bowl. Samarra glassmakers were also known for creating miniature bottles for perfume and other minor items. Some were pear-shaped with 4 sides and a nearly cylindrical neck made of blue and green glass. These were thicker and had a lot of carving on them. Fragments with highly stylized design were discovered in Samarra, and they are of exceptional beauty. Okay, we move to the manufacturing techniques. So one of the techniques was turning point with blowpipes. The blowpipe was invented in 30 Masehi, probably along the eastern Mediterranean coast. This invention made glass production easier, faster, and cheaper. As a result, glass became available to the common people for the first time. The long thin metal tube used in the glass blowing process has changed very little since then. In the last century BC, the ancient Romans then began blowing glass inside molds, greatly increasing the variety of shapes possible for hollow glass items. The second technique was glass blowing. Glass blowing is a glass forming technique that involves inflating the molten glass into a bubble or person with the aid of the blowpipe or blow tube. A person who blows glass is called a glass blower, glassmith, or gaffer. Free blowing is a kind of glass blowing technique. The third technique was free blowing. This glass making technique was used until the late 19th century and is still widely used. The process of free blowing involved the blowing of short puffs of air into molten portion of glass, which is gathered at one end of blowpipe. This has the effect of forming an elastic skin on the interior of glass block that matches the exterior, formed by the removal of heat from the furnace. The glass worker can then quickly inflate the molten glass to a coherent blob and work it into a desired shape. Okay, now we move to the development of the glass industry. Al-Fustat or Cairo was built in the 60th to 20th century. The town must have been a center of glass manufacture. The first date artifacts are coined lightweight, imprinted with the names of the monarchs and government officials dating from 77 or 8 Masih. Some of the most complex Egyptian glass containers were painted with luster. The luster was achieved by painting copper or silver oxide on the object's surface. It was then burned at around 60 Celsius. The main glass making center were in Almeria, which had a worldwide renown. Bowls with handles and ribs, as well as jars with 2, 4, or 8 intervals were unhurted. Glass gobites emulating Eastern products belong in Almeria, Malaga, and Murcia were discovered on the tables of Lod in 10th century Leon. In 19th century Cordoba, Al-Andalus, Abbas ibn Firnas is supposed to have introduced the skill of cutting crystal in the courts of Abdul Rahman II and Muhammad I. He was a scholar and inventor who could understand the most difficult writing and sought to fly by making artificial wings. After developing Andalusia's crystal business based on mined rocks, he understood glass scientific qualities and contributed to yearly work with lenses and the notions of magnifying lenses. Now, as a conclusion, as a prestige symbol and practical need, glass had a colorful history as it traveled from the furnace of Syria, Egypt, Iraq, and Andalusia all over the world, decorating people's tables and resilience. Glass continues to make our lives simpler, from windows to watch fronts, TVs to the thermochromic glass, aquariums to incubators. Thank you, that's all from me.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is ZULHIZAM bin SULAIMAN and my metric number is 1190183 and I'm from Faculty of Major Language Studies, and today I would like to present about the inventions of clocks by Muslims. Time will always pass us by with or without us, no matter what we wish, hope, dream or dread. Over the past centuries, the creations of clocks have evolved a lot, from the sundial to the modern clock that can be seen in this modern age. The creation of clock technology in the past was no less impressive because the ideas generated were very unique and had contributed a lot to the creation of latest clocks. During the 12th century, the castle clock is the first mechanism described by Al-Jazari in his classic treatise on mechanics, Al-Jami' Bain Al-Almi wal-Amal al-Nafi' fi Sina al-Hiyan, a compendium on theory and useful practice of the mechanical arts. One of the grandest clocks mentioned in Al-Book Al-Jazaris is the castle water clock. The first chapter of category 1 of the treatise contains 10 sections that detail its design and operation. The clock would have been fascinating to observe and listen to, with its sequence of mechanical routines that operated throughout the day. Al-Jazari is a brilliant engineer who gave rise to his predecessor's concept of automatic machinery and technology, especially old Greek and Indian scientific innovations. We'll move to the next invention. The most Jazari's famous machine is the elephant water clock. It's in the shape of an elephant with a chair on its shoulder, a fortress on the column of the chair's corners, a little dome on the citadel, and a bird on the dome. The clock's working elements were automated with a water-powered timer inspired by an Indian mechanism called Gatika. The timer bowl was a bowl that slowly sank into a secret water tank. This magnificent water-powered clock was a sign of rank, grandeur, and luxury in addition to telling the time. Next, prior to the 6th century, Taq al-Din planned to construct an astronomical clock that would measure time with great precision, fulfilling the Sultan's demands, and at the time, he created 3 dials that display the hours, degrees, and minutes using mathematics. He used many escapements and alarm, striking trains that sounded every hour. The visual relationship between the sun and the moon, the many phases of the moon's mechanism that indicate the time for prayers, and dials show the first day of the Gregorian calendar in his clock. In view of the flow of information between cultures and the growth of technology within the Middle East in the middle of 16th century, Taq al-Din's work on mechanical clocks is significant. Many of the devices stated in this clock can still be seen in modern clocks all around the world. As conclusions, Muslims succeeded in adapting clocks creation from Greek and Indian scientific innovations and making it better with their own innovation. They influenced the clock industry and managed to create unique clock inventions based on mathematics and engineering devices that were developed by their own. Therefore, it is not only Muslims who gain positive outcome from this innovation, but also the West countries in Europe that leads to the modern clocks ever exist in the world. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is EIMRAN bin FADZILAH. Matrix number 1192922. I'm from the group 5 class of the assignment. So our whole topic is Muslim invention that leads toward modernization, which is one of the point of it is in the flight category, or we call it in flights. What are the invention in 21st century, also in 20th century, but actually being pioneered by the Islam or Muslim scholars or Muslim people that was like a century ago. So we talk about flight. So when we talk about flight, we talk about aeroplane, we talk about something that flies in the sky. So we talk about, when we talk about airplane or aeroplane, you might ask who makes the aeroplane, who makes the airplane about it. So we always think about, oh, it's the Wright brothers. It's the Wright brothers who was first fly then aeroplane in 1909, where they fly for 59 seconds and they fly about 800 feet, and they also landing with no injuries whatsoever. But actually the first human that fly to the sky was Ibn Firnas back in the 9th century. So who is Ibn Firnas? So Ibn Firnas is a Muslim Cordoban in Spain who lived in the 9th century. He was the first human who ever fly, to make an attempt to fly, to produce a flying machine himself, to fly by himself. He has a lot of he gets a lot of invention where he admires some of the people, some of his friends, where he get the idea of onto making a machine or making human fly, literally or theoretically. So at this photos, at this slide show, so the right one, as we know, is the Ibn Firnas, and the left one is the Wright brothers. So actually the Wright brothers, when they're creating an airplane or aeroplane, they use the same understanding in terms of technicalities of the airplane itself, like Ibn Firnas also. So when we talk about Ibn Firnas, when the first step of he made the jump or made the attempt to fly was in 9th century, where he used okay, so this is one of the pictures. The right one is his status in Baghdad, and the left one is like a drawing of how he makes the machine itself, how he attempt to fly himself with this. So what he used is he wrapped himself with a loose cloak stiffened with wooden struts. So all the ideas came from looking at birds, where when looking at birds, he kind of fascinated him how that birds or how that animals can fly. So mostly all the aeroplane that we know is mostly from this understanding of looking at birds, how the birds use the tail, how the tail is very important for birds when they are landing. The thing is about airplane is, I think it's much easier for you to fly, but it's harder for you to landing safely. I think that's the key point in making an airplane, how to safely fly and safely landing at land. So I think that's the crucial point when we see the birds, based on Ibn Firnas also, is know the important role of the tail itself, where the tail of the bird give some a lot of some stability when the landing, on the feet itself, and when birds landing, it's not like landing like this, it's more landing like this, where the upwards, the body foot outwards, and the leg, their leg is straight itself. So the first attempt that Finas made was an unsuccessful attempt, but he's only got minor injuries. But he learned from that experience also that how important, and when he looks at bird, how important the bird itself in terms of wings, how the wings play part, and how the tail play part for the landing itself, and how the wing also play parts on when in the sky, kind of like maintaining the attitude or maintaining the stability of the machine itself, or the bird itself. So that's where Ibn Finas got some inspiration for want to create a machine for itself. But this is like 9 centuries, like a century ago, so 1,000 years ago. So when we think about it, it's kind of fascinating, very very interesting when there's people who think about want to make the machine, to make human to fly, which is right now is something we take it for granted. And when we think about it, it's how important for us in our world. Also, when we talk about Ibn Finas, after the second attempt was, and then he made the second attempt in the mountain, he kind of not fully successful, but it improved from the first attempt itself. So that's the crucial also. And after the second attempt, when the first attempt he do his age like 65 years, so imagine a 65 years old doing kind of crazy thing, I guess. But yeah, so after the second attempt, he doesn't do anything because he has like injury from the attempt itself. So he make some improve into the machine, and he also have their own pupils to teach other about his ideas on making human fly. Right. So Roger Bacon, one of the famous people, or famous one who make books about when he tell in his book that there's two things that can make people fly, and one of it we call it ornithopter. Ornithopter is the meaning of what Abbas Ibn Finas doing, what the photos that I showed you before doing, where there's like people, human itself, and then clothes of bird, loose cloth, and then sticking with the wooden socks. So that's the ornithopter. Of course, we can say that once Ibn Finas doing the first flight, because he also the first parachute also. So that's where the Wright brother get inspiration from creating the aeroplane itself. And until now, the rest of it is the history. But we have to acknowledge also the Abbas Ibn Finas invention or ideas that make us today. We can go to somewhere in no time, very fast before, and yeah, it takes time. And it's very convenient for people like us right now, where we can travel to any place in very short time of time. So it's one of the greatest invention that have been created, or have been ideas from the Muslim scholars. We have anything in terms of economics, politics, and social also. So it's very fascinating, and it's very, as a Muslim, of course, it's very proud to see that Muslims, people, the scholars who were one of the founders of this idea of making human fly. That's all for me today. Thanks, Q. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurdin bin Nasruddin, metric number 1190105. Today I'm going to talk about the conclusion of Muslim invention that lead to world modernization. First, in Islamic overview, the Islamic Golden Age was a period of culture, economic, and scientific flourishing in the history of Islam. Traditionally, date 1,000 years from the 7th century to the 17th century, with several contemporary scholars of Muslim heritage. Scholars from various parts of the world with different culture background were mandated together to translate all the world's classical knowledge into the Arabic language, and subsequently development in various fields of science. Science and technology in the Islamic world adapt and preserve knowledge and technology from contemporary and early civilization, while making numerous improvement, innovation, and invention. Generally, there are three types of Islamic scientific achievement. First is the revolution of astronomy, second, revolution of mathematics, and last, revolution of medicine. And now to the contribution of Islamic worldwide. There are several things contribution of Islamic worldwide. First is university, second is paper, third is glass industry, fourth is clock, and the last one is flight. Next, The Islamic origin of modern science and civilization and the influence of Islamic science for about 1,000 years in the world. Islamic scientific development were the basic of knowledge in the world. A distinct golden memory, our noble ancestors shone and were unquestionably the leading contributor to the cultural development society. As a student, we are indebted to them for their great effort and should recognize the unrivaled success. Hopefully all of you can enjoy watching this video, and that's all from us. Thank you.